This is a late 1999. It's actually a 2000 Saturn LW1, and I actually have a bad driver's side wheel bearing that's going to need to be replaced. So first thing that we're going to do is come down and take the hubcap off, and these outer caps are going to end up rotating off. Wrench and just start undoing the cap here. Okay, take that out. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to do a couple things. One is I want to loosen up these lug nuts here. I guess they're technically lug studs, and then I'm going to spray some penetrating lubricant on this. I'm going to have to remove the cotter pin, and I want to at least break this castle nut off of the CV axle here. Okay, I went ahead and set the parking brake on the car as well. I'm going to end up using some liquid wrench on this to do the penetrating. There's other products, PV Blast, that will do a good job. The big thing is that, you know, I just want to soak it really good in here. All right, and then I actually have rags down below to catch up any mess that runs out. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do now is just take the cotter pin here and straighten it up, and you can just get some needle nose in there and get it pulled around. A little bit tough with only one hand. I'm going to get two hands on this. Going to get this straightened up, all right, and then I'm just going to take it and I'm going to pound it out because there's just a hole going right through here, just to make sure that this castle nut does not undo itself when driving. Okay, I'm trying to get on here so you can see this. What I end up doing is I stick a piece of the needle nose through the eye of the cotter pin, and then I'm going to take and right in here tap it with a hammer and pop this out. I'm going to do that now. Okay, I've just popped it out, and you can see that what we'll end up doing is replacing this that way. So, alright, next thing we're going to do is go after the castle nut in terms of just loosening it while the tire is still on the ground. Okay, this is a 30mm socket on here, and there may be other ways to do it, but you know, I believe getting the right tools are the best way to do the job. And I went down to the auto store and got a 30mm socket, 1/2-inch drive, and I have my breaker bar here, and I just want to really get this thing loosened up before I jack the car up. Okay, so with it all penetrated with the liquid wrench or whatever you're using, next step is to get this nut loosened up. Okay, got the loosened up now, as you can see. So the next step to this is going to be finding the jacking points on the car, jack it up. I like putting a jack stand underneath it for safety, and then we're going to remove the tire. Okay, so I've got the car jacked up right now, and you can see I'm on the frame in the front, and then I have a jack stand holding it up in the back, or at least there for safety in case something happens. Next thing we're going to do is go after the wheel caliper here, the brake caliper. All right, and in order to get to that, we've got don't know if you can see it, but there'll be a Allen pin here, and then an Allen pin down there below. So there'll be 2 pins Allen wise to take those off, and we'll do that next before we get into the next piece. Okay, so the next thing I did is I took out from this rubber area here, there's just a cap that pulls out. You might need to get a screwdriver or a pry bar. You get that pulled out, okay? Same thing with the one down below. And then the next thing that you do is use a number 7 Allen, and the number 7 Allen goes in here, all right, and then we need to break this to remove this, okay? The other piece is on the front here, we have a retainer clip for the brake shoe that we need to, you can see it goes around down here, so we just need to carefully kind of take this thing off of here, all right? And once that comes out like so, put that in a safe spot for later, okay, because this shoe will just sit free here, okay? Also, it's a good time you can start checking your brake pads here, take a look at your rotor, see if it's scored at all, and if you're really into it, you could test the run out to see if your rotors are warped. So we're going after the caliper next. Okay, I've got the pins out. You can see here the pins are out. Next thing that I'm going to do is I like taking this off up here. I just put a pair of vice grips on the thing, and then I pound it out this way. All right. The reason I take this out is because I want to hang with ties the caliper up here so it's not hanging off the hose. The other thing is I need this hose out of the way because I need to get a socket on these bolts here that are attached to the strut. All right. So that'll be the next plan of action. Okay, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to wiggle the caliper off, okay? And be really careful, and your brake shoes will come out, and I'll set it up here for now. This rear brake shoe here actually clips in. If you can see, there's a clip on that thing there, and that clip actually goes inside that hole there, okay? But what we're going to do before anything else is we're going to get a C-clamp on this and gently push back the cylinder back in, because we don't want that extended out, especially when we go to put this back on the car. Okay, I've got the C-clamp on right now, so the next thing I'm going to do is gently rotate it in such that this area in here, that this metal is retracted back into this rubber boot. It's also a good time to do an examination just to see if anything's leaking around here, you know, general inspection of the brakes. All right, we're going to rotate the clamp in. Okay, you can see that the cylinder is retracted. It's pushed all the way back in. It's pushed the brake fluid back up into the master cylinder. And now what we're going to do is I've got cable ties. I'm just going to get this out of the way so we can work on the rest of the wheel. Okay, next thing is, as you can see, we've got the brake hung, and now we're going to remove the 2 bolts, and they're Allen heads. They're number 10 Allen heads that we're going to remove here and here that actually are the caliper bracket. Okay, I've already loosened them up, so I'm going to take that off. So that's the next piece to get out of the way. Next is removing the screw that actually holds the rotor into place against the hub. You soak this. I put an Allen head wrench in here, and the Allen head, gosh, doesn't even have a size on the thing, but metric again. But what I ended up having to do here is this thing was really in. So I use this, I tap on this here, okay, while I'm turning this here. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself rounding out a screw pretty quick. And in fact, I may even try to replace that screw just to see if I can, you know, put something newer in that way. All right, next thing is taking the screw out, and then taking the rotor off. And take the rotor off, we're going to be pounding in different places here. All right, it's going to get loud, but don't want to pound against your rotor itself for the obvious reasons. If you have maybe a soft-faced mallet, that might be okay. But usually if you just pound in here and start loosening it up, the rotor will come off. With the nut removed, pounded on this, removed my castle nut in here, all right. Didn't have to do that. I just went ahead and removed it anyhow. Got it where the rotor comes off, and we can set that aside. Okay, so next thing that we're going to go after here is when we move the wheel, we're going to end up having to take this whole housing off here. In order to take this whole housing off, we're going to have to take these two screws off here. We're going to have to take out a screw which is down here, if you can see that there. All right, and then you're going to have to take out the nut off of your steering, which goes to your rack and pinion there. So screws out, next piece. Taking the nut off of the steering piece, I just wanted to give an example that these are tapered in here, so you can actually take them and carefully just tap it up and it will come undone. Okay, it's a press fit. Okay, I'm going to use two hands on this to get it done so I don't damage anything. Okay, I use a number 18 millimeter socket to get the lower arm out. You can actually see where I've got the wrench back here. Okay, because I can't really get a socket in there. So remove that, and then that's a press fit. We'll pound that out. As you can see, we've got the steering linkage out already on here. Piece done. Now we're going after the strut connection. Again, that's an 18 millimeter on both sides, and we take this out, we'll be pretty much be able to remove the assembly. Everything's out now. Lower piece is out, disconnected. All right, so this thing is ready to go. Pull it out. All right, and so we're going to just lift it up here, lift it up, pull it out. There's going to be splines holding it in here. There's going to be a washer that's going to come out here. Got everything out now. Here. All right. And here is the part itself that we removed. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a new hub coming, and then there'll be a new bearing inside. So I'm replacing the hub, and inside here, this bearing, which is what's bad, which is making the moaning sound. And then this all gets pressed out. So I'm going to end up taking it to a shop, since I don't have a big vise to do this. They'll charge me probably between 40 and 60 bucks to do the labor. The bearing's going to be anywhere. You can get them China cheap as 25 bucks up to Timco, for about 65 bucks. So, pick wisely on your bearings that way. And the hub here is a Delco hub that I'll be getting to make the hub assembly. So that's kind of it. We'll pick up when I get the part tomorrow. Before we go in and get the wheel bearing pressed in and out, it's going to cost me 50 bucks today to do that. Wanted to really verify this was bad and show you that what happens is that when you turn this like a locker combination, you actually can feel a detent. It actually goes down, and as you spin it around again, you can feel the roughness, and then down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, so that's how we know for sure that this is a bad wheel bearing. The hub itself, I have a new hub here. All right. It's something that I actually got off of Amazon. I got the original Delco version. You can actually go out for probably about 90 bucks and get one from one of your auto parts stores that way. So this will end up getting a bearing pressed onto the hub part right here, and then this whole assembly here will then get pulled out this way, and this new one with the bearing is going to end up going in that way. Here's the new hub assembly all pressed in to the housing. All right. And again, the way this is done is that everything gets pushed out, all right, and then the bearing gets put into the housing, and then the hub gets pressed in. Right? Over here, you can see this is the old assembly that came out, and what if I can pull on this a little bit, you can actually see inside the bearings and what it looks like, the race of the bearings inside there. So this stuff over here, no good, and we're going to get ready to put this back into the car. So one of the things to keep in mind when we put this back together is, if you see this groove right here, the bolt that goes through this bracket here, as it goes through here, okay, the pin is going to come up through, and this bolt needs to be able to pass through to tighten it down. So that might mean that this thing has to get pounded up or pounded down a little bit so it's in the proper location for this. We're going to put it back together now. So what I'm going to do is just a cursory inspection of the boots around here. Make sure that the boots look okay, not cracked. I'm going to come up on the steering arm piece here. Move that around, check that out, looks fine. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some anti-seize on this, because if I have to take this apart again, I just want a thin coating around all of this stuff here. It's not going to hurt anything. You're going to be torquing this down anyhow. All right, so and yes, I wear gloves. I used to be black hand, but I don't do that anymore. Okay. Let's see here. So you kind of have to balance all of these, the CV axle, the lower arm, and getting it up to the strut. So I start first with getting it on the CV, and then you have to kind of pop this down a little bit. Try not to pinch your fingers. Get the nuts on here. Torque everything down later, kind of like leaving everything loose. That way I can do any kind of final adjustments that I need to do. What I ended up doing in order to align the groove to let the bolt go through here is I needed to put a piece of wood in to pry the A-arm down a little bit. So now I can just go ahead and tighten this up. I'll retorque everything here once I get it together. All right, when we ended up pounding this off of the hub, it was on pretty tight. And a lot of it is because you start getting some rust and all built up inside of it. So, you know, what I want to do is I'll put a thin layer of lubricant in here as well. And that way, next time, if I have to take it off, it will come off a lot easier. We've installed the rotor. We have the washer, the castle nut, it's torqued down. I've got the cotter pin in, a new cotter pin. The steering linkage is torqued in. The strut arm is torqued in, and the bottom control arm is torqued in. Gone ahead and installed our caliper bracket. That's torqued down as well. And the next piece behind this will be to actually cut the ties carefully, start bringing down our brake caliper. I'll remove the C-clamp. I kept the C-clamp on here mainly for safety, just in the off chance that someone got in the car, pushed on the brake for some reason. It wouldn't be going anywhere. So now that I'm ready for it, I'll take this off and install this. And as I put this on, one of the things I'm going to end up doing is taking a little bit of brake grease and putting it on the pins that the caliper itself will ride back and forth on. All right. So one of the things I just want to point out is that, you know, as we put this back together, we got to get the brake pads back in here. So there's the inside one. All right, and then we've got the outside one here. Some people sometimes refer to that as the floater. All right, and then we're just going to take this and flip this around. All right, and make sure we don't twist our hose, and stick it on. And as you can see here, the floater hooks into the bracket real nice. All right, and then the next piece, I can set this here, and then the next piece will be to install the pins, and then we'll torque those down to 22 pounds. Okay. So we have the brake caliper installed on here, 2 pins in, 22 pounds, have the caps on them, little lightweight grease, reattach the brake line to the bracket back here, reattach the anti-shake piece up here. It actually holds the caliper in, should be sliding back and forth, so as the rotor rotates, it can move here. So next piece will be to put the wheel back on, torque it to 92 pounds, or torque it as tight as you need to make it. Okay, we've started the car, and now what we're going to do is gently push down a couple times on the brake. And the reason that we're doing that is to reset the brake caliper against the rotor. So we're going to do that a couple times. Let off, back down. And we're going to keep doing that until it feels normal. Okay, so now the next piece is we'll take it out for a test drive, and the good news is there's no extra parts, so I guess I put everything back together that needed to be.